Good afternoon, all the guests and friends. I'm very happy to welcome our friends from all over the world to the Sustainable Future Forum, which I have organized in cooperation with Alina Aroni from Lombardia Bank. It is the first time that Women Who Inspire, who already exists as a platform for 6 years in London, goes global and holds a webinar in English. So it's our first test. I hope we will pass. Before that, we were focusing only on Russian-speaking female audience. So for us, it's a new concept and a breakthrough. Also, the new reality with the recent pandemic crisis and the topic of today's forum of sustainable future prompted us to rethink our concept and to open the doors to the wider community, because sustainable future is our common future and we have to act together. I'm very thankful to Lombardia for their trust and support. For me, they're the right partner because sustainability is in their blood. Alina will explain later and show us great examples of her bank's work. Why did we call our forum Sustainable Future? And we talk about different topics like companies, people, education, transformation, because the crisis demonstrated to us that sustainability is not just about the economy and government regulations. It's not somebody else's job. It involves all of us. It involves our jobs, us as consumers and our choices, our way of living and working, our re-education and transformation. It's a wholesome picture which involves all the aspects of business, personal and political lives. Consumer behavior and people's habits have changed significantly during the lockdown. There was a big cleanup or so-called auditing of the consumers' habits, which will define future trends, new winners and losers in the industry. And our second speaker, Anastasia Savina will explain more about this. The companies who were ESG compliant, ESG means environmental, social, and corporate governance, and they practiced CSR in their work, which means corporate social responsibility. They definitely won after the crisis because the investors are looking now for returns plus purpose. Consumers demand sustainable approach from the brands, and you cannot become green in one day. It's a long process, hard work, and a lot of investments. So we are facing a picture today where the companies need to be sustainable and earn profit. They have to offer jobs with a purpose plus decent remuneration for the talent. Consumers want sustainable goods and services to make an impact with their choice, but at a decent price. All of these are components of the same equation. And Alina Aroni will develop more on this topic. And what about us, population? Persons and our adaptation to the new reality. How do we need to transform in order to fit into the future? To choose your own trajectory of transformation, it's important to know the global trends of transformation in different sectors, industries, your clients, suppliers, and competitors' business. Transformation is universal. One of such global transformation trends is distant economy, which will influence all the subsystems of the economy. These are markets, institutions, rules, and regulations. And our speaker, Natalia Rice, will tell us more about the personal transformations. Where do we get the knowledge about the new world? Where do we learn the new skills and professions, which are brought out by the new trends, consumers' behaviors, and consumers' choices? Is it too late to learn? And can we survive without changing anything about ourselves? Or does getting new skills, new knowledge can enrich our life and give more pleasure and meaning to our lives? We all live for purpose and for fulfillment, and we want our children to be the same. And our last speaker, Elena Moore, will tell more about the new ways to learn and the trends in the education. I wanted to share a screen and to show the speakers and what they're going to talk about. Let me introduce our first speaker, Alina Aroni. Alina is a senior private banker at Lombardia. She has been working in the financial industry for more than 15 years. Before starting her career in wealth management, Alina was in FX. She was FX strategist doing macroeconomic analysis and forecasts of major currencies at another Swiss organization. Alina is a true citizen of the world, and she lived in Belarus, Germany, Italy, China, and now she lives in the UK. Alina, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you. So just on technical side, I'm giving over the admission task to you. And I will start my presentation. So first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Lombard Odier, a very warm welcome to the Sustainable Future Forum. It is a great pleasure to see so many old and new friends, and I'm particularly delighted that Olga has opened the proverbial doors to this event beyond the Women Who Inspire platform to include not only Russian-speaking but also international guests to this forum. And in fact, I have a feeling that the idea here is to rename Women Who Inspire into People Who Inspire. I'm just saying, Olga. The last few months have reminded us that it is when we are united that we are the strongest. So thank you very much for being here today. It means a lot to Olga and I, and we sincerely hope that you will find today's forum intellectually stimulating and inspirational. But for those of you whom I have not met yet, my name is Alina Aroni, and I'm a senior private banker at Lombard Odier Bank in London. And I work with private clients and their families on issues ranging from investments to portfolio construction, cross-border issues, and wealth planning, along with a team of very talented specialists. It is not by chance, though, that today's forum is organized in cooperation with Women Who Inspire platform. The community which Olga, I'm sorry, I think that we need to mute everyone, Olga. I think we have some disturbances.
Alina, we can't hear you.
Yeah, fine, perfect. So the community which Olga has developed over the last 6 years goes way beyond supporting female Russian-speaking entrepreneurs based in London. It is a platform for people who share same values and strive to bring additional meaning to our connections, which will help us to grow individually, but also as a group. And when Olga approached me with an idea to organize a forum on sustainable future, it was a no-brainer. Sustainability is at the heart of Lombard Odier, and we strongly believe in the power of sustainable revolution, which is happening now. And let me say maybe a few words about the bank for those who don't know Lombard Odier, and I will share some slides, so give me a moment, please. A second. So you can see the slides, perfect. So Lombard Odier has over 220 years of history behind it, and it went through about 40 financial crises, during which the group has combined innovation and prudence to align itself with the long-term interests of its clients and shareholders. So today we are one of the best capitalized banks in the world, and this has been possible due to our business model, strategy, as well as our ability to rethink and reevaluate the world around us. Lombard Odier has developed and introduced a proprietary ESG scoring as far back as 1997. And in over 2 decades, we have developed a robust science-based approach to analyze material, forward-looking risks and opportunities. This helps us better understand expected returns, which our investors request from us, and which obviously help us to move towards a sustainable model going forward. But the key question today, I believe, is what opportunities, if any, the current pandemic crisis offers in relation to sustainability. We as an organization believe that the pandemic will magnify the sustainability revolution, which was already underway way before COVID-19. But let's talk a little bit about the timing. and why it is here and now that we are talking about this revolution, why this is important. It is pretty obvious that we're living in remarkable times. If any of us were not sure at the beginning of 2020 why this year will be nothing like we have experienced so far, now we know that 2020 is a turning point which will influence the decades ahead. It is not that COVID-19 has brought us something new. It is simply caused a profound shift in consciousness, which is now reinforcing existing economic and social trends, which started way before the coronavirus. And my fellow colleagues, my fellow speakers will also touch upon that in their presentation. So the purpose of today's forum is really to look into these trends as an opportunity to make our lives better, to achieve greater returns on our investments, but also to take responsibility for making the right changes. But first things first, and before we speak of COVID-19 and opportunities, let's make some space for the human tragedy that this pandemic has caused and has brought upon us. Why this is important? Because we need to understand the huge human cost, which is the price for the next step that we're taking. And the next step, this is what matters the most, because it is not only how the humanity will come out of this crisis in the years ahead, but how we, our children, and their children will live in this not so distant future. Let me elaborate on this a little bit further. 3 months since the pandemic started in the Western world, we now know that thanks to governments, healthcare system, key workers, and us, collectively, together by staying in a confined environment in our homes, we can shorten the duration of the pandemic, right? But those of you who participated in the first online forum, which Olga and I held just a month ago in mid-May, will remember the discussion we had about the importance of containing the virus in the first half of 2020, but also about the economic crisis which follows the health crisis, which we have been experiencing. So what I want to emphasize now is that now that we have seen the economy coming to a standstill, now is the question to truly ask ourselves, how do we want the economy to be rebuilt? Do we want to come back to the trends we were experiencing before, to the patterns of unhealthy living and environment which we've seen before the pandemic crisis, or do we want to understand and make this change happen for the better? So, because if we don't use this opportunity, we're destined to have a much worse crisis, much worse than COVID-19 in future. So, let me go back to my slides. And finally, on sustainability. So it is true that sustainability has been most commonly associated with climate change, but this is definitely not just about the environment. So it is really the Paris Accord at the end of 2015 that brought governments and policymakers together at the same table that made some decisions and change happen. And when you find yourself, and whether you find yourself in the camp of those who believe that climate is changing indeed, or if you think that it's not, it doesn't matter anymore, because there are now regulations that are impacting companies and sectors and industries that don't reduce carbon emissions. But this is just one example. Sustainability goes way beyond climate change issue to include human demographics, rising inequalities, depletion of natural resources, among other themes. The way I think about it, sustainability is our chance. Sustainability is our chance to incorporate the values that we want to live by, our values, what we believe in, what we stand for, into the way we manage money. And you will probably ask me, why is this so important to an investor? from the investor's point of view. And think of it this way. As social consciousness rises and the pandemic helps us to reevaluate our priorities, this puts pressure on the political agenda, and new regulations will ultimately force an unstoppable change. Ultimately, the companies will have only two choices. Either they will have to comply with regulations and transition into more sustainable business models, or they will be left behind. And remember that the biggest threat to a company is that it is no longer in the portfolio of the investor. So those companies that will survive and thrive will be those who embrace the change. This will in turn mean that successful investors are those that pick the eagle companies that adapt rather than ostrich companies that bury their heads in the sand. But I will speak more about the birds like eagles and ostriches towards the end of my presentation. I hope I don't forget. So let's talk a little bit more practically about what this actually means and how do we as Lombardo DIA incorporate this approach into our investment process. So we do so by assessing companies' sustainability along three dimensions: financials, business practices, and business models. So the three-pillar approach is designed to identify which companies are more sustainable over the long term, and therefore are best positioned to benefit from the significant opportunities the sustainability revolution presents, and which companies will be the drivers of the returns, of the expected returns in future. So let's talk about the first pillar. The first pillar concerns the financials, and financials is by default a starting point of any assessment of any asset in the investment process, regardless of the asset class. So we start by looking at the company's financial viability. For example, in a bond, we will look at the overall solvency of the issuer, the credit rating, the ability to pay back debt and refinance it. For equities, we might look at capital efficiency, free cash flow, or returns to shareholders. Now we're coming to the second pillar. It gets a little bit more exciting. So the second pillar concerns business practices. So for a company to deliver long-term value, it is not sufficient to be focused purely on financial performance. What matters in the long term is a broader relationship with regulators, shareholders, employees, clients, suppliers. So the local community and the environment, and in other words, it's a 360-degree view of a company. Looking in the press today, you will notice the amount of articles attacking some of the largest organizations in the world for the way they're treating minorities in their companies, or the health and safety measures, or the fact that some of them are using child labor, and so on and so forth. Now, this is not good for a company if it's in the press and such questions are being asked. So what matters here is that companies that have programs in place that address gender diversity, inclusion of minorities, who adhere to best practice on board composition, or who have robust health and safety policies and minimize the impact on environment, negative impact on environment, these companies score higher in any long-term ESG metric. And of course, here we can talk about carbon emissions and consumption of water and things like this. These are of paramount importance, of course. And now finally, we're coming to the third pillar. The third pillar concerns business model of a company. And compared to the first two pillars of this three-pillar approach, assessment of company's business model is a forward-looking approach. This assessment addresses the question, how well the economy is positioned to achieve repeatable, long-lasting, sustainable returns in future, and how it is moving towards a more sustainable model. And basically, at Lombardo DIA, we believe that there are 5 megatrends which which can be defined as having the brightest future, so to say, for the expected returns in the world. And these 5 megatrends that are driving sustainability revolution are demographics, natural resources, climate change, inequality, and digital revolution. So here, in the interest of time, I would probably talk a little bit more about the next slide, which will help us to get to look at even bigger picture. So far we have talked about the ongoing changing in regulations on an international level that are encouraging and in a way obliging companies to make changes. We have also talked about the pandemic and how this is causing a shift in our consciousness. This is all extremely important, of course, and these are the catalysts of the sustainable revolution and to make it get to the next level. But is it enough? We think that the final component of the change that has to happen is the investor. It's you and it's us. What is encouraging for us as a bank is that our clients are increasingly demanding that we integrate sustainability in their portfolios. So to give you a little bit of statistics, just 6 or 7 years ago, only 5% of clients had interest or had questions about sustainability. Today, this number is 95%. So it's time to have to make some conclusions. And as I was preparing for this presentation, I remembered the book, which I read not so long time ago. And the impression of this book was very big on me. In a way, it helped me solidify my way of thinking about our life and connections that we make. And one of the thoughts that I liked the most seemed like a perfect fit to this presentation. And with a little bit of adaptation from my side, it sounds like this. If we are able to forego an immediate gratification or pleasure in life for the sake of obtaining a more long-lasting and ethical outcome in the future, then we have achieved the greatest level of emotional and investment maturity. So, as promised, I will not speak on birds, but I will show you a video, which hopefully you will enjoy. I hope it works.
It will work. We practiced.
Let me try.
The world of business is breaking apart. On one side are the ostriches, heads in the sand, creatures of the past, living on hope that the future won't come to pass, but the inevitable always does. On the other side, the eagles, decisive and soaring. They see above it all. Far-sighted companies with the ability to see beyond today and even beyond tomorrow. The future belongs to them. For our world is changing. Our economy is changing. We are in the midst of a sustainability revolution. A revolution that will affect everyone and everything on the planet. And one only the eagles can win. We believe in eagles. And our role on behalf of our clients is to find them. Will you ignore the eagles or invest in them? Rethink sustainability. Rethink investment. Rethink everything. Lombard Odier.
Thank you, Alina, for the video. Very beautiful.
Thank you very much, Olga. Of course, at this point, I remain open for any questions that you have, and I give the word back to Olga.
Yes, can I ask the first question to Alina? Talking practically about ostriches and eagles, how in reality did sustainable investment perform during the COVID crisis?
Yeah, thank you very much, Olga. It's a very good and pertinent question as well. So there have been several studies done during the pandemic crisis by a number of organizations, which showed that ESG funds have indeed outperformed traditional mandates, traditional funds, and that also the sustainable mandates have also attracted additional funds, additional inflows into these funds. In-house, we have also seen our sustainable mandates, or mandates which had sustainability criteria like best in class or exclusions, or impact, which incorporated impact tools like microfinance, outperform similar mandates, traditional mandates, which did not have a sustainability criteria. So there is evidence that it is outperforming, and I hope that this trend persists.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you very much. So it's really a new way of investment, new way of work. So if you're not sustainable, if you're not ESG compliant, then as you said, there is no place for you in the future world.
We basically believe that these companies will be out of investors' portfolios. And we're talking, of course, about big drivers of such portfolios like institutional investors. So once they exclude those companies which are not compliant and which are not going in line with the sustainability revolution, they will be out. And once again, probably something to emphasize, it's not about marketing that you need to comply with ESG. It's much more than that. So for example, some of the issues we're working on now is we're putting pressure and engaging in a dialogue with companies to release information about such data which was not available before, like some of the issues that I mentioned upon, for example, how many women is there on board? I don't know. What about the minorities, whether they are well represented in decision-making roles, and how they engage in local communities and things like this. So it's not about marketing; it's about real stuff, and this will impact the future returns and portfolio compositions of many investors.
Yeah, as you said, it's one of the components, the business practices, not just the business models and marketing, but it's actually what you do. And investors do ask more questions these days, and the companies have to reply to these questions. And it's a very positive change. And hopefully, thanks to a bank like yours, they will help to drive this change forward. Conscious with the time, I've asked everybody to put their questions in the chat, because we have to go to our second speaker. Alina, thank you so much. All the presentations will be sent to you if you request. And also we are recording the webinar, so the recording will be available. Our next speaker is Anastasia Savina. Anastasia spent 25 years in IT industry. She was managing global marketing and communications in corporate and startup environment. Out of this, 17 years she spent in ABI, which is the largest software developer in Russia. Today, Anastasia is the head of marketing boutique, which helps local companies go global and lead their business softly in the UK. Nastya, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. May I have a co-host? I'm a co-host, so I can share my presentation. Let me share screen. And ta-da. Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak in front of such a renowned audience. Olga, your events are usually amazing and really inspiring and very insightful. So I will do my best to add to this, to add value to the people who gathered here.
Sorry, does everybody see the presentation?
Do you see?
I don't somehow.
Yes.
Don't?
Yeah.
Everything all right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And particularly, I'm particularly excited because the topic of the future is very close to my heart. Because, as you said, thank you. I worked in IT most of my career. I worked in marketing most of my career. And for the last 3 years, I work with startups very closely. All 3 domains are very firmly focused on the future. And that's why kind of look into the future has become a professional passion of mine. So when the pandemic started to roll around the world, the kind of knee-jerk reaction is to start reading more about this. So, and I would be really happy to share my thoughts about the main factors that will influence our future and winning and losing sectors. And actually, to be honest, to be completely honest with you, those ideas are not exactly 100% mine. It's more of a summary of dozens and dozens of articles that I have read before in these 3 months, and opinions of true experts in the field verified against the opinion of venture capitalists and other startup investors with whom I interact closely a lot. And for these people, future it's basically their business. Because if they believe in a particular industry, they invest in it. And so their belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, this industry grows, or vice versa. Also, one other disclaimer is that right now, there are a lot of factors influencing the situation, and nobody knows exactly precisely how it will roll out. So no forecast is precise enough. But I just really hope that the factors that I will mention would kind of attract your attention to this factor and understand the dependencies of future on that. Another disclaimer, I will only focus on areas and factors that are being strongly affected by the pandemics. You know, those trends that existed before and were not strongly affected, I put them aside because I have I'm really limited on time. They keep on existing. The fact that I did not mention them doesn't mean that they are not in the picture. So when thinking about this future, I created a sort of mind map with the main domains that influence future economy, our consumer behavior, and our life. And let's look a little bit closer on all those domains. The key fact that we have to live with right now, I mean, the first domain is macroeconomy and geopolitics. The key fact that we have to live with is recession. And Western economies are they will fall into recession. The data shows that European economic zone will fall like about 6%, UK about 5%. And this recession is synchronized around the world. It's unlike other recessions that happened before. There will be no compensation from in other regions. And obviously, different governments, they try to implement some measures to help out their economies. But this stimulus that a lot of governments have introduced, it creates another risk, the risk of inflation, which is also a very real possibility. And for governments, it's a very tough act to balance everything, not to crush the economies, basically. There is a very strong trend pre-existed before pandemic is for globalization, but pandemic clearly demonstrated that threats like this require synchronized global response. However, at the same time, a lot of countries, after they shut their borders, it has become clear that since they're very deeply integrated into the global economy, they cannot kind of survive without essential products that are produced elsewhere, like face masks or some other agricultural products, etc., etc. So there is a lot of arguments for, so let's call it isolationism, or at least supporting the production of essential products within national borders. Also, there were a lot of articles talking about the tilted balance of global powers and how the kind of relationship, strained relationships between US and China, between oil-producing countries. These all the changes and consequences of pandemic might influence this balance of global powers that was seen before. Another domain, very important domain, is a pandemic showed clearly attracted a lot of attention to health and longevity. And there are two aspects of it. One is healthcare institutions, sort of institutionalized healthcare. In many countries, these healthcare institutions show that there's a room for improvement. There is a room for improvement in processes, and in this might require change of policies and protocols. For example, the policies of protocols of approving new drugs or new types of treatments or vaccines, or policies and protocols for healing people during the pandemic. And some of those changes are already being introduced, for example, with the telemedicine. Also, we can expect much more active use of biotech and medtech and all sorts of technology by healthcare institutions. They would be much more risk-taking in this respect, because this will ensure higher efficiencies for them. And the pandemic attracted more interest from policymakers and investors to this area. This means that we can expect change of policies and change of rules and an influx of investment, which would make the whole system grow and change. So I would, if you're an investor, I would suggest to put your eyes, to study this area and study this business. Also, on the personal level, health and longevity means that a lot of people acquired a healthier lifestyle. They started thinking, how many of us have tested for COVID? I'm quite sure a lot. And that this is an opportunity for all medical organizations that promote preventive medicine. And people learn and start doing excessive testing, including, genome testing and all other sorts of additional testing that will prevent any problems for the future. Another aspect of personal health and longevity is the lifestyle.
I'm sorry, everybody's concerned that the presentation is frozen. I'm explaining that you haven't moved to the slides yet. Have you?
I have.
You have? Then it is.
Yes, I have. You don't see it?
I know, we didn't see it, sorry.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me start again. Let me try again.
No, don't start again.
No, I won't start again. I will reload it again. Do you see the slides now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Now?
Yes, thank you.
Now?
Everything's perfect.
And now, good. Now it works. Oh my goodness, sorry. Another aspect of personal health is lifestyle. The surge of healthy lifestyle and the whole trend for more healthier lifestyle was strong before. We can expect it to be even stronger. With growth of demand for healthier foods and sport, that would help to maintain personal health. Another critical issue that was very important and before is mental health. Mental health is one of the causes of basically medical disability. I think it's top 2 cause of medical disability in this country. And quarantine didn't help much. So probably in this area, the problem will become even deeper before it gets improved. But people who are able to resolve this problem means medical professionals and investors who would invest into this area. They understand it very well, so we can expect that the things will improve and there will be a lot of different solutions to help medical health issues. Another domain is the future of work. Since most of us were working at home, and a lot of businesses had to rearrange the way they work, the way they organize, the way they manage teams. And the majority of companies actually succeeded in doing this. And many businesses, I've seen some estimates, up to a third of all businesses decided to leave the situation like this and leave the hybrid offline or remote working format, so that some people would be always working at home, or there will be a shuffled schedule where some people come to the office, some people still work remotely. But some companies, they decided to work remotely altogether. For example, I've heard about Twitter, who offered their people to work together, to work remotely if they want, you know, not just till the end of the year like Facebook, but forever. Does this mean the death of an office? Nobody knows, but if you are in the business of providing commercial real estate, I would be really, really concerned. Remote work also means that the teams are managed by the KPIs. And if they are managed by the KPIs, it always increases the replaceability of personnel. Because the same person, I mean, you can hire the person who would meet the same KPIs, not necessarily from this location. It could be a person from Bangladesh or anywhere else if this person meets these KPIs. It means that all intellectual workers should be really concerned, because it means that they are entering basically a gig economy where they can be easily replaced, and where they need to learn how to do individual projects, how to be a freelancer, how to acquire new skills, and how to manage productivity in an unusual way for them. And the gig economy, this trend was strong before, it will increase even further, also with the push and the desire of the companies to get out of the recession and fight the crisis. Also, a lot of international communications managed within these 3 months without excessive traveling, and managed pretty well. So we can expect that the business travel will reduce significantly, because companies would be doing their best to save money on business travel as well, which is usually a big part of their budget. On the personal level, as for the lifestyle, this crisis redefined our family and relationships. How we take care of our parents, what is our parents' arrangements, where do we live, how do we take care of them in case of a problem? What do we think of children, how do we arrange their education? I don't know about you, but many people redefined their relationships with friends, and where they were able to clearly distinguish between those people who are necessary in their lives and those people who are not, and just acquaintances. And the investment into this relationship does not have to be that big. Yeah. And I don't want to even start on dating site and scene, because first, I don't know about it. I'm happily married for decades. And I just only heard that my girlfriends who are dating, the whole process was frozen for 3 months. And but it also, the formats of the dating have changed as well. One of the strongest, moving to the next trend, there was a very strong pronounced trend for urbanization. People were going to the cities because there are jobs, fun, people, and it's fun. So that's why the property prices was soaring, and that's why people were living tighter together. This pandemic clearly demonstrated that living tightly together has a lot of disadvantages beyond very high property prices. It could pose a kind of a health threat. So the trend for urbanization would either slow down in some areas or even reverse. There were a few articles about the fact, sort of exodus of people from the most hottest Silicon Valley areas with the most expensive prices. Like I've heard there were like 15% drop in Cupertino, Palo Alto, etc., etc. I don't know about London yet, but we can expect that probably the less people will go into the city because of that. Also because a lot of workers will start working remotely. So there is no need to be very close to the office. Another thing is pandemic forced people to reevaluate their priorities. What is important for their life? What is not, and it's very superficial. For example, and that definitely influenced their consumption habits and consumption paradigm. What are they buying? What do they spend time and money at? What do they learn and where do they invest? Another consequence of pandemic is the income gap. Just like in any recession, some people, a lot of people get poorer, but some people get richer. And this income gap that was strikingly deep before will get even deeper. This will influence their consumption paradigm and consequently influence many markets, including luxury goods. And there are questions if it will shrink or grow or redefine itself. Also, the habit for online shopping. A lot of people, a large proportion of population didn't have this habit of online shopping before. They preferred offline retail, and now they were forced to shop online, and this habit will persist. It means the trend for death of brick and mortar retail will become even stronger. And the last slide, let's talk about kind of the winner and loser industries. The initial data, even from China, when it went out of the quarantine, it clearly demonstrated that one of the biggest winners are general automation industries. Everything that relates to automating productivity, AI, robotics, IoT, etc., etc. Even though they were growing before, now they're soaring. They're going skyrocketing to the market. The next big winner are biotech and medtech industries. They were growing before, but with all the attention focused on health and longevity and medicine, these areas would receive most of the investment and most of the attention and growth, ultimately. The pandemic and quarantine showed that telecom infrastructure is the core infrastructure. It is as important as water and electricity for survival of the nation, basically, and the economy.
The Maslow pyramid is now increasing, right?
Yeah.
To Wi-Fi.
Going with Wi-Fi, yes. So all industries that are able to ensure connectivity and actually less concentrated but wider spread connectivity in the countryside, mobile connectivity, that all industries that ensure bigger traffic exchange, like interconnectors, data centers, these industries are winners, ultimately. The change of consumption paradigm gave another push to e-commerce. And actually referring to Alina's presentation, unfortunately, the growth of e-commerce influences the growth of, I mean, it's badly damaging the ecology because of increased packaging. There are much more, I mean, e-commerce requires much more packaging than the offline retail scenario. Managing remote work, managing work of remote teams means that there are more opportunities for fraud. And cybersecurity was one of the winners in the current crisis, because businesses, they want to make sure that their data is safe and their people's data is safe, and also they want to make sure that their people are actually working but not doing something else at home. The experience of online homeschooling and online schooling gave another push to EdTech technologies, because some kids, just like a habit created within 3 months, some of it will persist. A lot of companies that started to teach online and will need tools and mechanisms to teach online. They will keep on teaching even in September when kids will get back to schools. So what are the losers? The whole concept of shared economy is put to the question because of the obviously hygienic and health issues. So if the business is in the shared economy and is able to ensure and guarantee that the shared thing does not pose any danger to the next user, then it could be a winner. But still, this crisis clearly showed that there is still value in owning things, like owning cars or owning a country house. And many people have decided to buy one. One of the next loser is energy. I think we all know about the scandal between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and how the oil prices dropped significantly. Now they went up again, but still. Offline retail will suffer not just throughout these 3 months, but probably suffer further. Travel. HoReCa is a hotels, restaurants, and catering business. And offline entertainment. All these industries, they would need to reinvent themselves and find new business models to be able to deliver value, even without kind of very close proximity, ensuring not very, during the social distancing era. And if they would manage to do this, then they will win.
Nastya, can we add a comment here on the HoReCa, if you go back? Sure. I would like to invite Elena Mur. She's one of our speakers, and she has passion and expertise in travel. So she would like to comment on HoReCa as well, because you put it as like super ostrich. Elena?
Yeah, thank you, Olga. Hi, everyone. It's very interesting.
Just a comment, please, okay?
Yeah, just very interesting comment about the hotels, because I've been talking to them a lot for the past few days, and a lot of them still in the dark, waiting for the government's guidelines to see how they will respond to the post-pandemic. However, some of them, for example, if we talk about Switzerland, some hotels in Switzerland never got closed, so they stayed open, they welcomed guests, and they already developed the protocols. And I mean, a lot of hotels do develop protocols, but we definitely know that this summer all the buffets all over the world will not take place. So you'll most likely come to the table at the breakfast with already pre-served, let's say, some jams and some croissants, and the rest will be only a la carte. Interestingly enough, in new welcome amenities in most of the 5-star hotels will be a little sanitizer and a mask, like a face mask in the room, individually wrapped for you. When I asked, can it be personalized? Are the hotels planning to personalize it? They're not. A lot of them working with the new institutions in terms of the hygiene, and a lot of the things will be removed from the room in order for the clients not to be worried if someone else touched it previously. For example, again, interestingly enough, the pen, the pens, the pencils, the little paper notepads, which we sometimes like to take as a souvenir, all of that will be gone. So I think this summer, people who will be traveling will see their rooms quite emptied. Another question about the housekeeping, when and how many times they can come, like what is it? So they're all been retrained. All this time, the hotels took time to retrain their staff using the new protocols. And obviously, if you travel, taking a villa or maybe a villa with your own swimming pool is an advantage, because then you don't need to meet other people's, because at some hotels the public pools might be closed as well. So there are a lot of interesting things which are going to take place in HoReCa.
Yeah, exactly. They really need to, these industries, they need to think hard to still deliver value, and
especially as a lot of them saying 5-star hotels. Just an example, I spoke with a Four Seasons Sparkling yesterday. I hope no one from there is listening right now because it's a secret. But again, all of them will be wearing masks. All the staff will be wearing masks. And they said Four Seasons is very much about the personalized care. So they provide the personalized service, the smile, the touch. Well, they cannot touch. And I said, okay, how the check-in going to happen? Because I'm going to take my passport, give it to you, so you're potentially touching it, then you're giving back to me. So what are you going to change gloves every time? They said it's still like they are looking into that, because all of that, like we never thought of this, but it's like, yes, I touched it, they touched, they give it back to me. Then the smile, we will never see the smile of the reception anymore, because it's will be hidden by the mask. All of that,
there are transparent masks.
Yeah. So all of that is very interesting. I think 5-star hotels, they're really, really very, and some of them, most of them do take their time to reopen now. Like let's say the Ritz in Paris, they do take time to, they're not going to open straight away, because I think they want to see how the others will take it, the second wave, no second wave. And again, how to implement the service in the right way, the way how they used to have it, or the standards of service. That's interesting. That's a lot to see, and I'm sure that in autumn we'll be reading a lot of interesting articles about that and observations.
Thank you, Elena. Nice to
So actually I concluded, because I would only encourage you to read more. I collected some of the articles that I've seen, one of the best articles I've seen in this presentation, which the presentation would be distributed by Olga. And I would love to discuss it with you and argue with you. And here are my details. You can find it in the presentation. Thank you.
Nastya, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And I think that it will be useful to send it to the participants so people can digest it, because it was very technical, but gave a lot of good information. Can I please ask you to send the list of the recommended literature in the chat if possible? And of course, I will distribute the presentation. Also, to save the time, please send your questions in the chat. I will ask you one question. What is your advice for the companies who want to maintain their market position and thrive in the post-COVID future? So they want to be eagles. What's your advice for them to do now?
I always would suggest them to think about the future and the future of the industry, read more. But, and if they need to pivot into the areas to sort of, I've heard amazing advice from one of the VCs. He said, you need to produce a drug rather than a vitamin. You need to produce something essential, necessary, rather than, supplementary. So try to pivot into producing something essential, which is critical for survival. And then you would be one of the eagles.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I hope there will be more questions coming to you. Please take a look at the chat. And I would like to introduce our third speaker, who is very famous in the Russian network, Natalia Kuznetsova-Rice.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes, we can. Yes. And Natalia will be, so first introduction. Natalia is an international marketing professional with 20 years of experience in media and tech companies, who has recently added career coaching to her portfolio. She splits her time between helping artificial intelligence startups to enter the market and also coaching individuals on their career transformation. Sometimes she shares her ideas on technology and the future of society in publications like Forbes or Tatler. So we read your articles, very interesting, keep on writing. She holds a business degree from Oxford University. So Natalia, please tell us how do we need to transform today in order to fit into the future in post-COVID world?
Oh, Oля, I wish I knew. No, it's a joke. I started concerning myself with this whole transformation questions a while ago when I realized there is a kind of strange thing happening, especially to women after a certain age, say 40, 45, when the opportunities for them are diminishing. That bothered me a lot. And I started thinking about it, and I started collecting information and looking into it specifically. And I realized these issues are not specific to my friends, to my closest circle. These are huge issues that are happening across the world. And we need to look at it kind of with a longer perspective. I'm going to share my presentation. I'm going to talk about my findings. And I'm
but not only concerning women, correct?
No, of course not. It's just women are more. Oh gosh, they take the hit first.
Yeah.
I think that they are struggling a bit more with these trends. Men are more safe for now, but let's see. Okay, give me a second. But the trends, of course, are for relate to everyone. Give me a second. Is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So when I look at what's been happening before and what's happening today and tomorrow, a few things come to mind, and I want to walk you through all of these so that you realize that kind of what's happening is almost inevitable, and we can't change that. It will be happening, and more of it. So the trend number one that affects us today is actually the speed and density of the progress in the 21st century. So if you look what's been happening in the past in history, and if you look at what's happening today, you will find that the amount of progress happening in the 21st century equals to what's happened past 20,000 years. This is like massive. This is, I don't know, all the best things of humankind has been invented, right? And the funny thing is, already in the first 20 years of the 21st century, our progress already equals to everything that's been achieved in the 20th century. So it's getting faster, it's getting much faster. And if you're familiar with the technology a bit, there's called Moore's Law. Moore is a guy who was head of Intel in the 70s. And he discovered that every 2 years, so the capacity of computer power to process doubles, while the price of it, the cost of it decreases. So if you can imagine those computers from the past, right? These huge rooms of like stuff of technology, and it was extremely expensive. No one could afford it for personal usage. But then like the years came, and hey, here we go. We have a personal computer. We have a small diskette, right? We could carry our information. 32, what was it? Kilobytes. We were like, yeah, it's exciting. But now look at what we can do today. And so up until, I think it was up until 2017, this speed of progress was doubling every year. Now, and here I have to take a long pause, now it's doubling every 3 months. So I read the recent research in AI, and basically the speed of progress of the complexity and what technology can achieve is doubling every 3 months. This is insane. So this is trend number one, the speed and the density of progress, right? Trend number two is increased longevity, something to celebrate, right? So if we are here today, I assume people in, I don't know, late 30s, I mean, early 40s, 50s, I don't know, 60s, there's a high chance for us to achieve a 100-year point in life. So there is a slightly differentiated kind of predictions for women and men. I think for women it's 97, and for men it's slightly less, but not much. So yeah, a good chance. So we are quite different from the generations that preceded. And not only that, okay, there's one trend I have to mention. Also the decrease in procreation rates, unfortunately or fortunately. We know that with increasing economic success in a country, the procreation rates fall tremendously. So now in Europe, the the healthy procreation rate is 2.1 child per woman, which means that's the rate at which the country kind of replicates itself, if that makes sense, the population of the country. In Europe, it's much less now, much less now. The trend is true for every country that achieves a certain level of economic kind of stability and comfort. The only countries that kind of doing well in terms of procreation and increasing population are countries in Africa. So if you kind of in your head add these two trends together, a longer life and decreasing procreation rate, you kind of already come into an idea that is a society with a very large amount of older population. And guess what? You're right, because the next trend is what is now in social studies called the third quarter of life. The third quarter of life is 50 to 75 years old, which is a very new, they're called young old. However, they don't want to be called young old, and I understand, because if you look at people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, it's very hard to call them old, right? Old the way we used to think about it when we were children. They are, I don't know, like us. They are mature, they are active, they are very useful in a way. So it's funny that sociologists are now struggling to find a name for this new category that emerged. The people that enter the second half of life, but they are full of economic potential, of purchasing power, of aspirations, goals, things to achieve, money to spend, active mindset. Here's this whole new category in the society that the society doesn't quite have the place for. Our workforce is not used to it. The things that now kind of work around this three stage of life, university, work and retirement, they are disrupting. They are not really ready to accommodate this new emerged group of young olds, even though I don't like olds, let's call them mature, the third quarter of life. So what I'm trying to say here, we will be seeing, and I think this year, 2020, at least it was predicted, I think it's true. This is the first year when globally, the number of people after 50 globally is more than kids under 5. So we are starting to see this twist in the more mature kind of texture of the whole population of the world, well, at least in Europe and where we are. Okay, so this is kind of these trends. The next one is the pandemic showed us that no job is safe. And it's such a shame, Lena, I was listening to it. I love hotels, but I was thinking the other day, well, is it worth even going there? If you're not going to get the hotel experience, like why bother, right? So it's a shame.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still worth going, but it's just curious alterations to the service. Yes.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So okay, so what it shows us that the black swan events are real and they are defining for the whole global population. And the black swan events is something that was described by Nassim Taleb in his book. And these are events that are very hard to predict. They have very high impact. They have universal impact. They are so insanely out of the blue, but the impact of them are much bigger than kind of more traditional current ongoing events. So here we are. We're witnessing something very big and impactful on a large scale. Trend number 5. Automation, artificial intelligence are taking away human jobs. They are getting better and better and better and better. And I wish I could say, well, no, it's not true, but I can't say that. They are taking away jobs. They are, the algorithms are substituting professions that can be kind of described as a sequence of events. And if I think McKinsey published a report a couple of years ago, that the kind of the nearest estimation is 800,000 jobs will be lost to AI. But also the good news is quite a lot of new jobs will be created, but we don't know which ones yet. So we are losing jobs to AI, that's a fact. So, and the last trend I want to touch upon and kind of bring in this whole mix of wonderful things happening on our planet is that I think Nastya touched upon that once we start working from home, once it's not important to be in the office, you can work from anywhere for any company. I've just started working for a company in California, and they didn't even ask me like twice where I was based. So what that means? Well, that means a global competition, which is not necessarily a good idea. It means we will be competing not just with the people in our, city or country, with everyone. It may be good for some if you possess an exceptional skill set, and it may not be as good as others. For others, for those who are not as exceptional, their skill set is normal, right? And just like everyone else's. So the global, I think ultimately it's making it harder for everyone, right? Because no one is essentially is unique, because like everyone is competing with everyone. So I don't know if it makes you happy or gloomy, but let's see what we can where we can go from there. Okay, so what that means? Well, lots of things. First of all, I think that means that we have to forget about the whole idea of three-stage life, which is university, work, and retirement. It's just out. It's not going to happen. If we live until, I don't know, let's be pessimistic, 90, if the third quarter of life is quite active, 50 to 75, if the whole society has matured so much that the younger population is not able to provide your pension payments anymore, what do? We keep working. We keep working into our 70s and later, if you will. But also, if we add the trend of the change and how fast everything's happening, it also means that there won't be a chance to keep one job for a long period of time. We'll have to learn and relearn as we go, right? And if in the past it was very, everyone with a profession that they carried through life was admired, and for a good reason. If it's an academic or a teacher or a doctor who's been in a profession for 30, 40 years, lots of admiration, lots of respect. And if someone can do it these days, I'll be first to bow and say, wow, well done. But for the majority, I think it will not be possible, unfortunately. We have to relearn, and we'll have to start new careers once or maybe twice in our lives. For us, I think it's a bit, kind of easier, but for the generation coming after ours, it's even much more challenging. I think the second factor here is that taking responsibility for one's career, really deciding what I'm going to do next and how I'm going to do it next is becoming more personal responsibility rather than institutional. So what I mean by that is, like, in the past, if you went to a good school, a good university, you got some nice brands on your CV, you were kind of safe, more or less. Now, wow, you yourself know some people who were left without any opportunities after the pandemic, or even earlier, before pandemic came. People were saying, well, the opportunities are just decreasing. They're just less of them, especially for women for those who reached a certain level, and men are much more, with the words, they don't like losing their status. That's what I'm trying to say. I think the research showed that women are much more adaptable when it comes to having to change. If I was a director and I have to go level down, fine, I'll take it. Men are not quite good at that, so it's harder psychologically for them. But people have to take the step, horizontal steps, like going down to go up again. So it's not like straight line up as you would expect maybe a while ago. Again, what it means well, that means lots of things. That means that the responsibility of maintaining our employability in the market really lays with us. So we have to constantly upgrade ourselves. We have to develop and maintain the network to have opportunities come to us. And of course, we have to invest time into developing a personal brands, so that when with the gig economy, it doesn't matter much which company you belong to. It matters what you bring, what functionality you can cover, what's your added value. And it's not about those names on your CV anymore. That's exactly about what you can kind of deliver in a project timeline as we more and more go into the gig economy. And I think it's important to really be aware of the skills, of your own skills, and the skills that will be required tomorrow, and kind of keep reassembling them, because even in my lifetime, I remember how, I think I was given this example before, but it's still striking. When I was starting my career, I don't know, about 15, 20 years ago, I remember this guy, the designer of websites, were like a god. Everyone was going to them, and people would be spending, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000 like dollars to build a website. And now what? Now you pay I pay £11 subscription fee on Wix, and I can make amazing sites out of it. So, I mean, you can be a designer, but you might not be able to sell what you used to sell 10 years ago for the same amount of money. So you have to reassemble your skill in a way to sell it to the markets in a new form and still stay employable and in demand. And then the last point I want to make here is really, because it's a long run, because we have to restart ourselves, we have to transform quite a few times if we are to work into our 70s, which seems like a high chance probability. So it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves in many ways, like physically, mentally, intellectually. Because taking a new course when you are 50, and believe me, I do coach, and I have women come in to me after being out of workplace for various reasons, raising family, not thinking about work due to successful marriage. They're in their early 50s, they want to get back to the workplace, but they forgot how to learn, how to adjust, how to find compromises, how to be mentally agile. These are skills. These are things we need to have handy if we need to switch our jobs and we need to retrain. And it's not easy. I want to highlight, it's not, if you already started like later in the second half of life, it doesn't come very easy. And especially companies are not quite yet open to it, but they will be, trust me. I think we will see a huge change as companies are opening to older employees. Now, on the positive side, I want to talk about this a bit. So when Ola, stop it when you think it's time. I have 2 more slides left. So when the scientists looked into people who live longer, but who are also not, it's not about just living longer, it's about having a better quality longer life, right? You don't want to be tied to your bed, you want to be active, you want to go out, you want to, you know, work, you want to be mentally on, right? And when they looked into it, they certainly, there are blue zones, you know, in the world where they can see like a certain amount of population, these blue zones, that live longer and better than others. So one of those blue zones is Okinawa in Japan. 100 is like an easy age for everyone, for most of the people there. They are very physically fit. They are very agile mentally. They do work, and they just it looks like life is easy for them. So the scientists, the researchers, bothered themselves with the question like, how is this even possible? So, and what makes them so special? So they found quite a few interesting things. The first, of course, the diet. So it's very the food that just grows there, no processed food. Second one, as you would expect, is physical activity. So they're they walk, they go up and down, they sit on the floor, they get up like 100 times a day. So they are physically active. The third one was a feeling of community. They were very close. They talked a lot to each other, and then they were sharing friendships and belongingness to a group, which is very important. But the fourth thing, and I think that's extremely important, and it's a Japanese thing that I've become a fan of, and I do promote this idea of ikigai. So what is ikigai? It's a Japanese word for what makes me get up in the morning, what makes sense for me. So really, it's an idea of my work, but for something that I believe in. It's a meaningful activity, if you will. So it's finding something that I do, I'm good at it, I love it, but also there is recognition. Recognition is a very, very important kind of feature of longevity and successful and active life. You probably know that there is another research that tells you that people, when they start working at 65, the suicidal rate go boom, because without seeing the impact that your work does and means something to society, without getting the feedback, people feel like they're nothing. So finding something that is meaningful to you, that kind of has impact to society, and getting some feedback for it is hugely, hugely important for your mental health and for staying alert and active and young as long as possible. And this is kind of, I think that's the goal, right? So we want to be we have youthful kind of older days. So if you're interested, this huge kind of ikigai is a huge concept in Japan. Just read about it. It's good. It's worth it, I think. So okay, last one. And I think if I take a look ahead, and I ask myself what kind of jobs and professions, or rather areas, will be in demand. I think number one is everyone with a good mixture of left and right brain, means people with really kind of strong analytical skills, like logical, math, computing, all the STEM subjects, combined with like strong abstract thinking, and knowledge from humanitarian studies, and I mean everything, history, geography, I know, animation. So if you manage to combine the two, I think there is a place for you in the future. Number two, I think that the leaders who will be able to offer new meaning to people, to employees. Firstly, because younger generation are not just happy with having money, they want to have more, they want to have meaning. And secondly, once we all sit at homes, working from homes, and there will be more of it, there needs to be someone who will come and tell us like what unites us, what gives us meaning, why we have to get up every morning and switch on our computer. And it's not just about money or product. There should have to be more. And I think the number three is personal consultants in every area, because the world is becoming everything's becoming more personalized. And we talked about the institutions. I think they're losing their power. By the way, everything I say here is my personal opinion. Don't forget about it. And so the individual planning will be huge, from education, lifelong education, to biohacking, how to make myself more to improve my performance, to make myself more mentally sharp when I'm 17, to I need to produce, I don't know, a paper or something. So I think these three kind of areas will be in demand. And if I can leave you something, I would really recommend these two books. They really kind of influenced my thinking, and I just think they are important to read for everyone who are thinking seriously about planning the future with our extended lifetime. So Linda Gratton is amazing. She teaches at the London School of Economics. She's just an extraordinary lady. So she wrote this book, lots of tips of how to plan different parts of your life, money, family, friendships, education, development, how to make them work together, how important it is to take time to reflect and plan ahead, especially in your like 40s, 50s. It's huge. And Extra Time by Camilla Cavendish, she's a baroness, and she's just, I think she's a Harvard fellow, exceptional lady as well. She gives an account of all these like bits that constitute kind of active states in longer life. She's very anti-sugar, and she's 50-something. She looks amazing. So I do recommend these two. And yeah, I am here if you want to talk to me about career transformation and get a perspective. Yes, I'll be happy to help. Thank you very much. Sorry if I was a bit too long. I
yes, you were, but it was very interesting, so I didn't want to interrupt you. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Anya, please stay for a little bit longer to answer the questions in the chat. There were a couple that I saw. Please answer them. And sorry, we don't have time to answer the live questions, but what you said about that we should constantly upgrade ourselves and learn and relearn the whole life. That brings me to our last speaker, Elena Moore, who will talk about education, not for our children, but also for our children, but also for us. So about the new ways to learn and the new trends in education. Elena, you don't have much time, but I hope people can stay for 5 longer minutes to get some really valuable information from you. Introduction about Elena Moore. She's a co-founder of educational advisory Connexus Academic Advisors. She is a passionate traveler who loves organizing travel for her friends and clients with collection consulting and helping those in need with Nadezhda Charitable Foundation. Today, she will be joined by her colleague, Vlada Konashkina, who is the head of London office. So, Elena.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. It was very, very interesting to hear all the previous speakers, and what can I say? No pressure, right? Live long, work until you die, and constantly learn. right? So I guess all of you listening to the previous speakers realize that one of the main things which will support us, which can change our future and will change the future of our children, more children to come, is education. Obviously, we cannot live without educating ourselves continuously. And here, yes, I'd like quickly to say about a few trends of the future of education. And then I know that Vlad is here, she is, if you can, Olga, do you mind sharing the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's on the second slide, it's me and Vlada. I think you need to go just to the beginning of the presentation. Yep, here. She's reloading her computer now, so the technology sometimes cannot be as reliable as we would like to think. And there are more of us in Connexus Academic Advisors. But Vlada would be able, if you have any other questions about the education, or if you will have a question during me speaking, please put it in the chat, and then Vlad will be happy to answer it during the presentation or after the presentation. And then to the next slide, education in 2021, what do we already know about that? So it sounds very familiar for everyone who has children, because we all went through the 3 months of online education at home. I'm sure a lot of us were maybe not very happy in the beginning. As a result, I'm sure a lot of you know a lot about how your children are studying now. You understand what their weaknesses, what their strengths, you probably got involved, you probably learned something new as well along the process, which is good. So what's going to happen is obviously what's already happening, because when we first put this presentation together, it was just before the June when the schools reopened for some years. But yeah, social distancing, deep cleaning. What will be also important is for international students when they arrive in August to rejoin their boarding schools, 14-day quarantine on arrival, most likely. So hence the early arrival days. Schools in England only opened. Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland are still schools closed. What else is happening? That as we already know, that each class have the same teacher and they are at the same space, so trying not to touch many things, which I don't know how to achieve with the little children. It's very hard. Masks. I don't know if you're already trying public transport, wearing a facial mask on the public transport. I personally find it quite suffocating and hard. But yeah, mask probably will be for a while with us. And yes, so a lot of online studying, a lot of children spending and us spending time in front of the computers. I know that a lot of you probably after 3 months not very happy about the time the children spend in front of the screen, and that trend probably will move towards the new year as well. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Education in 2021 is that obviously for those who are now finishing in July and thinking, okay, what can we do with the children if as we mentioned, the hotels are quite tricky to travel to. What about the summer camps? Well, Switzerland being a champion, together with Germany and France, are already open. Sorry about the type in presentation. So Switzerland is generally back on track to the normal life. And yes, the summer camps are open. Australia, New Zealand, Malta, Canada, they will be reopening. Even UK for language summer camps, they are, some of them, reopening end of July and August. Unfortunately, as a trend for language schools and summer camps, what we can see currently.
Lena, we can't hear you. Got frozen. Okay, maybe Elena can leave and then come back. Maybe Vlada, can you pick up?
Yeah, I'm trying to, sorry guys, I'm trying to get my computer started, but it's not working. Right, yeah, so as Elena was saying, sort of the language the short courses for language studies, if anybody wanted to do that. It's mostly coming alive in August, and from September we're hoping that because the travel restrictions are still there, we're hoping that in September it's going to be sort of full life. But it's also, please be mindful of restrictions, because some countries are more strict than others, and also depends on your passport, what passport holder you are as well. Can I have the next slide, please? So I think this is an emerging trend that a lot of people and a lot of schools have been talking about, because children have spent so much time at home, and because parents have been introduced to how the school systems are working. And I think a lot of parents have thought about homeschooling and, you know, what are the pros and cons of that. And a lot of actually parents have asked us as well, you know, can we do homeschooling? What are the benefits? It is something that you should be really very careful considering if you want to start homeschooling, because apart from, sorry, Elena is texting me. Yeah, okay, her internet's gone.
Lana, can you just go through your presentation?
Sure, sorry.
Quickly, because we're already out of our time. Vlada? Did we lose both of them? Oh, that's a pity. Then I will just run through the slides because we practiced all of that about different...
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. We're not lucky.
Quickly run through the slides. We are out of time.
No problem. So just maybe if anybody would like to ask us separately what we think about homeschooling, flexi school, and unschooling, because these are trends that are very popular now. Schools and parents are thinking about them, talking about them. So yeah, we can go to the next slide maybe. So I've heard other speakers talk about this. So the digital will be progressing, and there will be more investment in digital learning from school side as well. But because there is so much digital schooling happening now, I think both parents and children will want some digital detox very soon. So yeah, this is what we're thinking will be happening as well. And because a lot of people have realized that learning online is sometimes easier, because we're not, and you know, we don't have to travel, it's much cheaper as well. A lot of people will be considering moving, studying online for undergrad or your MBA, or you know, maybe even schooling. So the offline learning will become more exclusive and the new luxury, if you want. And so these are the top skills to succeed. And I think our speakers have touched on that as well. These are what we think are the skills you need to have and you will want to learn, or maybe adjust a bit, so you will succeed in the future. I will not go through all of them, just to save time for you all. And as well, universities, because of the coronavirus, a lot of schools are much more flexible now in accepting applications, and the same goes for universities and business schools. So I did a bit of a research, and the sort of top 50 MBAs at the moment, they're all saying that we're happy to accept applications. They've moved the deadline. So if you're maybe thinking of changing maybe upgrading your CV or changing your business environment, have a look and see, maybe it's worth looking at that. And also a lot of these MBAs, if you don't have the time for a full MBA program or the funds, they do a lot of really good short courses. So have a look at that. It might be interesting for you. but as well, you know, MBA it's not as easy. Of course, it's not easy. You know, it's top 50, so it's not going to be easy as if you just apply. You have to know English. You have to do some additional exams, but it's still easy. Yeah. So yes. Anything? Yeah, and there are even without that, there are a lot of free resources around. There are a lot of free lectures that top universities do, you know, Oxford, UCLA, I think a lot of American universities do a lot of interesting podcasts and lectures. So really, if you don't want the diploma, but you do want to work on developing your skills, just Google. It's very accessible, but of course you need to have a certain level of English there. But yeah, so, and there we are. Sorry about all this. It's been
conveniently I joined at the very end. Apologies about that. Because we have a huge construction site next to our building, and the whole internet just went down. So I realized I was talking, and then no one was listening.
I was very quick.
Yes, thank you, Vlada. This is like teamwork. And again, you see, the future, artificial intelligence, trust technologies, I'm not sure about that. The Wi-Fi disconnects and everything will go down. So it's a lot of...
Thank you very much to you and to Vlada for interesting presentation and direction for us where to go and learn. I just have a question, because information is overwhelming. And as Natalia said, we don't know what the future jobs will be. So where would you suggest us to study, or which short course to take? Because they're quite expensive and time consuming. So what would you suggest us to do? Because I understand that we should learn and upgrade ourselves today.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think what's always useful is just to sit down, like find the time when you are undisturbed with all your house routine, relatives, children, husbands, and just sit down, take a big, I don't know, A4 paper, I prefer big A4 notepad, take your pen or pencil, whatever you're comfortable with, and just think, okay, what do I have? Just a little mind map. What do I have? What did I study? Where I am now? What industry? So it's two important things you need to understand. What do you specialize in? What's your profession, right? I don't know, what do you do? And then which industry do you work for? So this is two things which are important to consider, because with your, for example, if someone find themselves now without the job, you know, because of the COVID or just prior to COVID or some other reasons, or only looking for the job, you know, you just fresh from the university, like some of your children might be, then you just need to understand, what do I like to specialize in, or what am I good at? And then which industry, because very often you find that your skills can be useful for different industries. So you can switch the industry and just take a little certification or diploma. And Olga, actually, a lot of them right now offer so many free resources. Even if, like in our presentation, we're happy to share with that. We have this Oxford source of the Department of Continuous Education, as a lot of us, like Natalia was referencing to that continuous education is important. Well, Oxford has a whole department of continuous education, which is free resource. And you can go and find there some courses, like little brief courses, which you can update yourself with. And then, yes, if you do find some, if you have some money, you can take a shorter course. If you do have substantial amount of money, because MBA is not cheap, and that might be a life-changing opportunity. Or if you have time and you thought, okay, probably you were thinking your career is going fast and you might earn more, but at the moment everything stopped and you do have funds for MBA, do consider MBA, because now the cascading effect of, if you previously were thinking, okay, I'm only good for some kind of mid-level MBAs, I can't really get in the top ones. Well, now great opportunity to get into the top ones. So I would say that start from what you have, what you know, where do you want to be, or do you enjoy what you do? Just reevaluate yourself. Are you happy with what you're doing or were doing currently? Do you want to change? If you don't want to change, just deepen your knowledge in what you're doing and take some, I don't know, like maybe always to know a bit about technology, about the, I don't know, just tech skills improvement. But if you were not happy with what we're doing, just try to understand, maybe go and talk to Natalia. She's saying she does talk to a lot of ladies finding themselves at the age of where they, what shall I do? I haven't been learning for a long time. I haven't been working for a long time. My job was family, that was my full-time job. I mean, referencing to ladies, but again, some men might be stuck in one position for ages, and then boom, they lost the
Elena,
job.
and yeah, another question about the age, because as far as I remember, the average age for MBA was like 28, 30. What is it now?
No. The MBA, the proper executive MBA, actually requires you to have substantial experience. So you can, of course, I think going to MBA without work experience is just waste of money. You have to, my opinion, like work for a while, and then you want to take an MBA as the next step. I can see Natalia is nodding, so I'm
I took an MBA, executive MBA 10 years ago, and my average age was 37. I know it's been going up, so you will be on the young side when you join.
It is, and now like when you sometimes look at the, you know, your peers at the MBA classes, the top MBAs like Chicago Booth or you know, LBS, they actually they're 40s, they have families, they have children.
I second that. You know, my classmates in LBS, I think the average, you know, class was about 40 or something.
Yeah. So now it's a good time. I would just say that you actually need to see where you are now. Are you happy? Do you think you're missing something? If you can't analyze yourself, just get a help of someone who can, you know. And there are a lot of free resources. Like, I think the most important is not to limit yourself by thinking it's expensive. I think it's just go online, Google, I don't know, you can always contact us and we will happy to help. But again, the Department of Continuous Education of Oxford and so many other universities, they offer a lot of free courses right now, and it's all online, and it's amazing. And I would encourage, even, I mean, me being like, you know, running the business and everything, I'm constantly trying to learn something, because I understand that I just need it in order to be competitive, in order to be flexible, like having critical thinking and not to miss opportunities. So even if everything is great with your life and your jobs, still do take some courses times to times.
Thank you very much, Lena. And thank you to all our speakers. I think it was a good teamwork, and we did manage to give a broad picture of sustainable future, which I said in the beginning is not only about economy, but it's about companies, it's about industries, it's about us, jobs, consumers, and for us, finding our ikigai, as Natalia said, find our happiness and our purposefulness in life, because that's going to be the biggest driver in the future professions. And always thank you, ladies, Alina Aroni, Nastasia Savina, Natalia Rice, and Elena Moore, for giving a lot of motivation to our audience and a lot of information. So let's constantly upgrade ourselves, constantly learn, and be happy in the coming world, which is exciting future.